It is officially the end of week 2 of Preptober, and as a recap, my goals are to finish the first draft of my Gothic novel, redo my outline so I can start draft 2 really strong next month, and read a few Gothic novels so that I'm really inspired and I'm really understanding what the genre is all about. An update on that first one. So far, I'm so close to finishing the first draft. I'm right at the end. There's this fight going on, which I don't know if I'm actually going to keep in the final draft, but for now it's in the first draft. I'm liking how it's going, but there are so many things I can't wait to change once I start draft 2. But before I even get there, I need to finish this first draft. I think I have one more chapter to go. I think I can actually finish before next week is over, but at the very least, I want to finish this draft by the end of next week so I can start outlining draft 2. For the books that I've been reading, I finished Dracula. I just finished The Haunting of Hill House last night, which did not go how I expected. I had no idea what that book was about going into it, except for that it was a haunted house based on the name of the title. But it didn't end how I expected. The whole story didn't play out as I expected. And I feel like it might be one of those books that I go to multiple times to try to really understand what's even happening. I did some Googling after I finished reading that book, and it made a lot of things make more sense for me. But there are definitely certain chapters and passages that I would like to read again just to get a deeper understanding of what that story was about. But I really liked it, and I'm excited to potentially watch the TV show. I watched the trailer for it and it seems very different than the vibes I got from the book, but that's okay. I think I'll still check it out just to see if it can give me a new perspective on what that story is about. After I finished that book last night, I did start on Frankenstein, so I'm really excited. I've been wanting to read Frankenstein for a while now, and just like with Dracula and The Haunting of Hill House, I have absolutely no idea what Frankenstein is about, except that there's a guy named Frankenstein and he creates a monster, and I don't even know if this monster is a good guy or a bad guy. Is he labeled a monster because of how he looks? Is it because of things that he does? I have absolutely no idea what Frankenstein is about, and I feel like that's kind of embarrassing because it's a really popular story, but no idea what it's about. I've only read the first few letters that start off the book. I don't even think I've gotten to chapter 1 yet, so I'm very much in the beginning of this book, but I'm liking it so far and I can't wait to see how this ends. I think I'm gonna keep with this trend of reading an older book and then a newer book, an older book and a newer book. So far, Dracula came out in 1897. The Haunting of Hill House, I think 1939. Frankenstein originally came out in 1818. Then I'm probably going to read Mexican Gothic after that, which is a 2020 book. Then I'm probably going to get into Wuthering Heights, which is what I wanted to read after The Haunting of Hill House. But then I decided I didn't want to read Wuthering Heights anymore because Frankenstein was just looking so nice on my bookshelf. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I also know that there's a movie, I think, being made about Wuthering Heights, so I do want to get to this sooner than later because I don't know if there are gonna be like spoilers floating around, not that the movie has been announced. As a side note, I've been really enjoying going into a book and having no clue what the story entails and just being surprised by all the things that happened. A few months ago, I was reading some popular books that kept on being talked about over and over again. I finally got the books, but I wasn't surprised by anything that happened because I already knew what was going on. I don't think I read any spoilers, but I don't know if it's the fault of the writing and the back of the book blurb kind of giving away the story, or just the amount of exposure some of the books I read had gotten. And so the overall premise was completely revealed to me before I read the book. It just made it less exciting. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see that was going to happen. Not a big surprise. But for Dracula, for The Haunting of Hill House, and for Frankenstein so far, I just know absolutely nothing about these stories except for the titular character is going to be involved in some way. I knew that Dracula was a vampire. That was the only spoiler I had for that book. And so it made for a really interesting ride on all of the things that these group of people ended up doing in order to reach the goal in the end. So there are 2 books I didn't talk about in the Gothic Books I Want to Read video I made, but I found 2 books by Anne Ratcliffe, who I knew was really popular for her Gothic works. I've got a Sicilian romance romance, which I believe came out in 1796. And then I have the Italian, which came out in 1790. I might be reversing those dates, but either way, these are pretty early Gothic writings. I think that the Gothic genre started in the 1700s. I know she wasn't the first Gothic writer, but she is really well known for being one of the first to really get the genre going. So I'm excited to add these two books to my list of Gothic novels that I want to read as preparation and as inspiration for my Gothic novel. And then finally, how is outlining draft 2 going? I haven't started yet, but I do have a bunch of ideas and changes that I want to make between the first draft and the second draft so far. I'm waiting until I've read maybe a few more books before I've started on the outline. Regardless of how many books I have read though, I do want to start outlining this draft 2 by the last week of October so I can start November strong. I don't know if I'm going to read 7 books like I originally set out to do this month. I've only read 2 so far. I'm starting a 3rd, but I at least want to read 1 more new book in the genre before outlining. So after I finish Frankenstein, like I said, I'll probably read Mexican Gothic. Then I'll feel more comfortable and really understanding more about the elements of Gothic literature. I can read articles all day long about the 7 tropes or the 7 things all Gothic novels include, but they don't really resonate with me because I haven't read a lot in the genre. But what I have read and the short stories I haven't even talked about that I've read have been so inspiring to me. And a lot of the things happening in my novel I feel would lend well to the Gothic genre, which is why I want to understand it more and really lean into that Gothic feeling within my own work. So that is the update for my Preptober so far. So how are you doing with your Preptober so far? I'm feeling pretty good about mine. How are you feeling about yours?